As I'm dwelling on this more and thinking about it more, I'm thinking how that can really apply to I'm referencing the past few, so these all really build on one another. I'm thinking how they can really apply to so many in a healthy way. In other words, I do feel like so many people live in these toxic dynamics of not understanding what's happening in their own mind, in their own world, in their own... oh God, how can I explain what you just showed? That was so good. We've heard so many storylines in the past few years about how people... It's like they fuck up their own lives because of some fantasy. Something lured them away, some confusion or delusion, or some, like it feels like a bomb got dropped in somewhere, or all these things. And I think it has a lot to do with these types of dynamics, understanding who everybody is in your life, not chasing that fantasy, but recognizing that fantasy has value too, right? Like that is your muse, but understanding what a muse is to you. I need to explain it better. You know how I listen to readers? There's been a ton of tarot readers and different storylines that I've heard where they've talked about how there have been people, like men in marriages, but then they it's like have a side piece but the side piece is never aware of the wife. And as time goes on, it's like they start to recognize or realize what's happening, that they are a side piece, that there is a wife. And then they're so hurt and pissed off and become bitter and all types of things because they thought there was real love there or something there. And they've wasted so much time and energy and resources on somebody who didn't give a fuck about them. They were just utilizing them as a muse. And I've shared with you over time, like that's also that person's cue to, you need to go in and love yourself, right? Because we're not loving ourselves. I've been in those dynamics. We're not loving ourselves because we're not listening to the signs, the signals, the warnings. We're not understanding what's happening. And we're not loving ourselves enough to have those standards to speak up, all these things. And don't beat yourself up or gaslight yourself either. There's a balance to all of it, but we have to take personal ownership and responsibility. But it's also this understanding and seeing it, and then maybe this is a softer, easier way to recognize these dynamics as truth, as of clarity of what they really are, right? Where that muse, now granted, that story I just told you, that's not what I'm referencing when I talk about a muse and then true love. That's you have to figure out your own rules and boundaries and lines where for me, that's not okay to cross when there's that sexual encounter, that tangling and commingling. That is crossing a line in boundaries, and that is dangerous on many levels in my book. And so that's crossing into toxic and inviting the toxicity in. And so it's like, well, that's where you can get really muddled and confused and mentally confused and cause an array of problems. And so to each their own, right? Like you have to know your own limits, boundaries, standards, all these things. And that's all based on how much you love yourself and what your truth is. And it can be different for everyone. And whatever you experience you want to have in this lifetime. And so nonetheless, in a lot of those storylines, I feel like it would have been so helpful for so many. Well, truth and clarity is always important, right? So again, using that example is probably a bad example in the sense that there was never truth and clarity. The guy was always lying to the third party until the third party, started to love themselves to figure it out and recognize it. And yet, if everybody could be truthful and clear and honest and really love themselves and decide for themselves and think on their own and utilize their own tool and just, all of this could be so much more pleasurable. And yet when we aren't truthful and clear within oneself and aren't engaging with others who are also that way, that's when the toxicity comes in, the confusion comes in, the mental real chaos comes in. And so it ultimately always goes back to one having to love oneself so much that they get clear within oneself so that they can come from that truth. And the more they do that, the more that's what they'll call in too, right? That mirror. That's why it's always worth doing that kind of work. And then you can also see too, right? It's also the clearer you are and you're calling more of that in, you do call in everything, right? The brighter you are. And so that's okay. But then you can also see that. You can also see when you're calling in. And it's not even calling in. It's when you encounter, right? You can see when you encounter the less than, the fake, and again, forgive those words, but it's an easier image for you to see. It's not the real, the authentic, the true. And it's easier for you to distinguish between the two sooner and sooner, right off the bat, so that there isn't the muddling. Because the longer you sit in the muddling, the longer it takes you to be honest with yourself, the more mental confusion and toxicity you're swallowing. And so the harder it is for you to heal from that, right? Some people swallow so much toxic confusion and delusion, they can't ever heal from it. And I don't want you to be helpless or hopeless, but it's that understanding that it is almost like you cross too far, right? It's like you had so much time to... I think anything can be turned around always and forever with unconditional love, but it's almost like it'll take that much longer. And how much time do you have, right? So depending on how long you've swallowed the toxicity and how long you've sat in it, and are you yet being honest with yourself, right, will determine how long it takes to get out of it. And then, we all only live so long, so to speak, just to give you a visual of what I'm referencing. And then the reason I say that is time is technically an illusion as well. Yet it is many people's reality at the same time, and it's a way to help us. It's a way to help us to stay on track and get it in gear is kind of how they're showing it. It's like the reason that illusion exists is more for us. It's always for us, but it's almost like the illusion of time is for us so that we can get to it, get to our goal, get to our truth, get to our authenticity sooner than later. And most people, I feel like, recognize the time is ticking for them, so to speak, in that age factor, right? So this is why the midlife crisis. This is why the blah 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 blah. And so it's like it's that opportunity, right? Those shakeups, those wake ups. It's that yes, time is ticking. You have only so much time in this bodysuit in this lifetime. So you said you wanted to experience this in this lifetime. Get to it. It's that way it's like that way to wake you up or get you back on track, where it's technically an illusion, right? And your soul never really dies. You go in and out of the seen and unseen world forever. That's what we were, forever. And so the illusion of time is just simply to keep you on track, so to speak. And it's not, the reason it's almost comical and illusion is that it doesn't really matter. It's more just because you said you wanted to. That's what you wanted to. You wanted to have fun. You wanted to experience this. You wanted to have bliss. You wanted to blah, blah, blah. And it's a way to be like, what are you doing? You forgot. Why aren't you remembering? And now half your life is gone. So will you hustle it up now? Will you get back on track now? Will you love yourself now? Will you do the work now? Time's ticking. You're not going to get to everything you wanted to get to in this lifetime if you don't get to it. Does this make sense? Are you hearing what I'm saying? This is why it's like it's an illusion, but it's at the same time for you. That illusion is to benefit you, to be like, oh, right. Oh my gosh. Oh, right. I am running out. Oh my God. Yeah, let me go do that. Right. You're right. Right. And then some people don't. They never listen, never heed the warning, never figure it out, never love themselves enough, never care. And they're on their deathbed and they're like, oh, fuck. Right. I missed it. Well, maybe next lifetime. But again, I don't know if you recall past ones where they showed it tends to get harder or something. It's like if you don't, it is like karmic debt or something. If you don't eat your karmic debt, or if you don't, which is, if you're not being honest with yourself, then you're lying to yourself and others. So if you don't get to that truth, if you don't get clear within you, it's just you keep piling on every lifetime. So again, it's only serving you to love. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.